Hello everyone, welcome to an outtake at the 1AFilmFest.com. We are here with a good friend of 1A Film Fest, Jeff Morgan, and he is here to break. So I guess we have 4 breaking news stories today. We already covered 3, but you have big news, and I know you have been in this fight. We are all about the truth at 1A Film Fest, and you have been fighting against corruption, systematic injustices within our justice system.
Especially within the family court system.
Yeah.
The family court system is a nightmare of injustice all the time.
So start off by maybe giving a little bit of your backstory, and then we'll get into the big news you have for us today.
Okay, well, first off, I, as a Christian, as a man who believes in God, loves my family, wants to see strong families throughout our country, everywhere. I think that we should be having policies in place to strengthen families. I think that children need both parents, and they need both parents in an intact home. And I think that parents have an obligation to do the best that they can to be there for their children. And what really got me is the idea about how easy divorce was. And basically the idea of, we call it no-fault divorce, but really what it comes down to is no defense divorce. Divorce on demand. Divorce for any reason, for no reason. You can make up a reason. You don't even have to know what the reason is. And you can be divorced against your will. So this is something that actually goes way back to Marx and Engels, and there's some Kinsey thought with it as well. But we never used to have this. We recognized marriage as a legally recognizable status. In fact, we give benefits to marriage. Once you get married, you have over 1,000 federal benefits, you have additional state benefits. So something about the status of marriage creates these additional benefits for you. And it's also designed to, marriage again is the ideal environment for children to be reared.
100%.
And that's what God says at the same time in the scriptures. For this purpose a man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, the two shall become one. And one of the things that God said about divorce, he hates divorce. What he wants to see with marriage is to see godly offspring. So what he's saying is, at the same time, then when we see the breakdown of marriage, it's impacting our children. It also impacts the individual. It has many fundamental liberty issues and freedoms at stake with it as well.
Well, it's another one of our, where it's disposable marriages. It's very easy, a no-fault divorce. You go in, you file, they rubber stamp it, and then it's this idea that, oh, no big deal, if I get married and it doesn't work out, I can just divorce.
Right.
And almost too flippantly for what the seriousness of that institution. So the culture has been to devalue that institution of marriage for both the children and the spouses.
Right, and especially for people that go into marriage with a religious conviction. So for example, in Texas, the jurisprudence of Texas actually recognizes marriage as being an institution ordained by God. So it's not just a secular thing, it is something that it was ordained by God. Now, if you go back to the 1840s, Marx and Engels, they wanted to abolish the family. And a lot of socialist thought has said the same thing. We do not want to have children just reared by their parents. We want them to be property of the state. We can make them better citizens and stuff like that.
Well, and allocate resources. So it's really about follow the money.
It is a money grab. And I noticed that during the festival tonight, we were talking about children trafficking, child trafficking. If you want to see child trafficking on display, go to your family courts, where a stranger will come in and tell a father or a mother what is the best arrangement for their children. A stranger who does not know the children, or maybe has seen them for 15 minutes or something, and you have to pay for these things. And I've known good men, good women, good mothers, good fathers, grandparents, aunts and uncles who cannot see children because a judge will say, well, I think this is the best thing for the children. The best thing for the children is to be reared in an intact family with both parents living. And it's always interesting, if a parent dies, it's a tragedy. We look at that as being, oh no, we have to take care of the children. But divorce, we've kind of have backed away from. And yet, like I said, God hates divorce. And part of the reason he hates it, I believe, is just because of what it does to not only our children, but your divorce not only affects children, but your grandchildren. And it affects society at large. So, do you want...
So, what would you say to the argument that someone put out there, but it's better to be out of a bad marriage than stay in it for the sake of the kid.
So first off, that is just like an either or argument. What it says is that people cannot work things together. And a lot of times when you have marriages that they say fall apart, really there are skills that can be taught. Communication skills, how to handle money skills. In fact, it's interesting, there was a Judge Leah Ward Sears out of Georgia. She was, I think President Obama was possibly going to nominate her to the Supreme Court. And she teamed up with a person from the University of Minnesota that put out this thing about, second chance marriages and how to basically keep marriages together. But they said about 40% of the divorces that take place, 40 to 50% are what they call needless divorces. But we have such a culture today. I think J.D. Vance even said it. He's like, we change marriages like we change our underwear. And I know I've spoken with the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
That's more often for some people than others.
Well, that's true, yeah. I know, but...
Just had to throw that out.
Well, you caught me off guard when you said that. But it's true. It's like changing your socks in the morning. It's like, well, we have disposable marriages. Yeah. And yet, from a Christian point of view, marriage is supposed to be, and even our vows says, till death do you part. So,
well, and I always think you love that person in the first place to get married. There had to be something there.
Right. And there are always challenges. So, for example, like when you have special needs children, that creates a lot of stress. There are things that do create stressors, and I think that in those instances, what you do need, there may be some professional help that you would need to get through that. Because, I worked on the Santorum campaign years ago, and he had Bella. And Bella had a lot of trisomy 18, or I think it was called, or something like that. And he talked about the world of special needs children. It's a whole different world. And many people don't understand it. And then there's other things that people can have, illnesses within themselves. They may have something like autoimmune issues. And how does that impact somebody? And how does that impact a relationship? So, for example, with the fibromyalgia sort of thing, they have special groups that are designed to support families, because having fibromyalgia in itself creates a lot of difficulties. And because fibromyalgia is considered an invisible disease. You look at your wife, you look at your husband, you think everything's fine, but there are often things lurking beneath the surface.
Interesting that, as we're seeing with MAHA, Make America Healthy Again,
right,
that there's sort of a parallel line of Americans being less healthy and the increase in divorces.
Absolutely, and that's something that we need to be looking at, because health does not come in a pill. Sometimes you have to take the pills and everything, but if you take, sometimes you may be taking 40, 50 pills a day just to try to keep pain under control and everything else. I think that medicines interact with us, and we haven't talked about that. And that's one of the things that I like Robert Kennedy talking about.
That's interesting.
So,
connection.
Yeah, but yes, as we increase healthiness, we should see a reduction in divorce. But healthiness goes just beyond our individual health. It also talks about healthy relationships as well. So, and I think that this is very important. Yet, what we have with, I'm going to call it no-fault divorce, because that's what people know it to be. But really, it's no defense divorce. Again, it's divorce for any reason, for no reason. You can make up a reason. It's forced divorce. It's a divorce against which there is no defense whatsoever. It's the only lawsuit like that. If I were to sue you for something, we would have to go to court, and I'd have to say, well, yeah, Tamara did this to me, and you could either admit it or deny it, and we talk about what the damages might be. Right. But in divorce, you can just say, well, I think the marriage is insupportable. What does that mean? Nobody knows what that means. And if you look throughout the country, the courts have said that insupportability is a subjective state of mind, which is also very interesting, because it may be insupportable today, but in 3 weeks it may not be insupportable. Because I've known people that have been married, gotten divorced, and then they remarry each other.
Right, yeah.
So, this
whole does happen.
Yeah, it does happen. But what I'm attacking right now in Texas is the 6.001 of the Texas Family Code, and it talks about insupportability. And unfortunately, I'm going through this right now. I wish it weren't the case. I would much rather not be going through it. Please pray that, because I want to see reconciliation more than anything. But what somebody can say, this marriage is insupportable. What are the facts? You don't need any facts, because insupportability is a subjective state of mind. well, I want to sue Tamara because I think she did this. Well, wait a minute, I wasn't even there. That doesn't make a difference.
Right.
I win. Because in divorce, the petitioner always wins. The respondent always loses. And how do you know that? Because the petitioner is petitioning for divorce, and it will, on the merits, will never be denied. You don't have to have any type of reason. You can make up a reason. You can lie about it. Your spouse doesn't even have to know the reason, and they can be divorced. Usually, if we're talking about a contract in a commercial sense, you know, you have an agreement.
Right, a breach of fiduciary or
right, and you have the
grievance.
Yeah, you have an opportunity to make a remedy to that, generally speaking, or there may be a mutual consent where you both say, you know what, this is going to work out, and whatever. It may be you both go your own ways. There may be damages to be paid, but the most sacred institution in our society, the institution that should be the greatest source of blessing, security, should be the greatest place for children to be reared and stuff like that, just like that. It's easier to get out of a marriage than it is to get out of a cell phone contract in a lot of instances.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah. So, but that's where what I'm doing is saying, first off, if you say insupportability, what does that mean? Is there a duty that I breached?
So you are actually taking a case through the
right
court system here in Texas,
right,
to be able to address this and get legal change.
Absolutely, yes, because this whole thing, and this has been something that, again, we never used to have this idea of defenseless, no-fault, insupportability divorce. People look at Ronald Reagan and they say, well, Reagan signed into law. But he was lied to. My understanding is he was lied to quite a bit about it. And the divorce industry itself, by and large, exists on lies.
Yeah, I've interviewed in the past a gal who works in divorce resolution, bypassing the divorce, and she said attorneys will say, oh, I've seen how much your client is worth, I'm going to paper you to death in this, which means they're going to drag it out until your client is out of money, and the only thing left for you two to fight over is the attorney bill, because they now own all of your stuff.
Right, absolutely, and that's something that is, again, we have private property, private liberty, liberty issues and property issues. But first off, if you have committed a crime or some type of a breach of fiduciary duty or duty to the marriage, put it out there. And first off, you should be able to have that opportunity to remedy it. And if it's something that, you know, I know that there are people that, for a legitimate reason, we're not saying get rid of all divorce, nobody's ever said that, but this easy divorce for no reason whatsoever, that's what we need to address. And if a man or a woman abandons the family and moves somewhere, you know, it creates hardship for the children, it creates hardship for the abandoned spouse, and yet they get to say, well, I'm going to find myself, I have met up with somebody new, and then they say, well, our marriage was insupportable. Insupportability is usually perjury to begin with. It is a lie. You know, and it's also a conclusion of law. So if you could say the reason our marriage is insupportable is because my husband or my wife keeps on having affairs, whatever the thing may be, that is a reason for it. But the facts should be presented to the jury or to the judge, and they should be able to say the facts actually say, yes, this is something under which a legitimate cause of action would be divorce. Or better yet, if possible, counseling first. The state's policy is they want to see strong families, not destroy them at will. So even no-fault divorce, because all you have to do is file and you've won. The petitioner always wins. Yeah. And then it's just like, well, how much can we get for you? Let's angle for this, angle for that, like you just said. And who wins in divorce? The attorney.
The attorney.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but what we're trying to, in this case here, so I don't know what the cause of action is against me, insupportable. It basically, these are the magic words. And I've talked with
and
people.
It's legalese and jargon, right?
Well,
to obfuscate.
I can actually read it to you. So the Texas Family Code 6.001 says this: on the petition of either party to a marriage, the court may grant a divorce without regard to fault. There's no breach is necessary. If the marriage has become insupportable because of discord or conflict of personalities, so insupportable, we don't even know what that means, because of discord or conflict of personality that destroys the legitimate ends of the marital relationship. It's very interesting. We had a case back in 2001. It was called Weight versus Weight, and there was a justice that said the legitimate ends of the marital relationship can be defined in a religious viewpoint. It's ideological. It's religious in nature. Consequently, this statute was unconstitutional. There was no way you could reconcile this statute with it being constitutional. This was a justice. And what I think she did, her name was Kim Thompson Frost, and if you're watching, Justice Frost, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know this for a fact, but I think she laid out the case to say, I can't really address it in this issue, but this will come up in the future. And here is why.
Here you are.
Yes, so here it is, it's 24 years later. It's clear that this justice said, you cannot reconcile this statute with Texas jurisprudence. So it's unconstitutional. There's no way you can make it constitutional. But then it also prevents any reasonable expectation of reconciliation. So one person can say, well, there's no expectation. Another person can say, I believe there's complete ability. And what happens at this point then is you don't have any actions that are there, but you have one spouse's viewpoint versus another spouse's viewpoint. And the state and the judge, because of the way the laws are written, will always side, without exception, with the person who says it's irreconcilable, it's insupportable. So this becomes viewpoint discrimination. What they're doing, and it becomes, it actually becomes a free speech issue in a way too, so that I'm being punished in a sense because my viewpoint, my speech, and they're intimately related to each other, says, no, I don't agree with that. Well, that's not what the state's viewpoint is. The state says, if whoever says it's irreconcilable wins, that's the petitioner. And this is destructive to our family. Again, it's so bad. This is Leninist and Marxist and Keynesian in its approach. It has nothing to do with law in a sense. We know that Marxism, Gramsci, Kinsey, they've tried to change the laws gradually to get us away from being a state ruled by law. We're not saying get rid of divorce. Divorce is tragic, but it may be necessary. It may be a remedy.
Right.
But
however, barriers to making it so easy would result in more marriages working it out and staying together.
And I'm glad you said that, because you know what? One of the individuals who said that, Hillary Clinton.
Really?
Hillary Clinton said that we ought to make it.
No wonder Bill didn't divorce her.
Well, no, but we ought to make it a little bit harder.
Death threats probably were a barrier.
Yeah. I really don't know what she.
I know. Off the cuff remark about Hillary.
No,
it was a bad joke.
I know, but I mean, look, she went through a lot, and you could say she had grounds because of.
Oh, I was going to feel sorry for Bill Clinton.
Well, you know what? I'm not going to get into that one way or another.
Let's leave the Clintons out of it.
But just to say that the idea is that yes, the state's public policy should be to say we should be protecting the institution of marriage, not destroying it because somebody wants it.
So the great James Dobson, Dr. Dobson, founder of Focus on the Family, who I am dating myself by saying that I listened to him back in the day when I was a young bride and young mom, and one of the most important things that I learned from him through his radio stations and books was that boundaries are not bad things. Boundaries protect and keep inside that which is dear to you. So he likened it, I believe, that's my memory from many, many years ago, serves me right. It's like, it's defense on the cliff. Right. It's not a bad thing that you're trying to keep someone from knowing what's beyond the cliff. Right. You're protecting them so that danger doesn't befall them. Right. If you have obstacles and hardships and boundaries around your marriage, you're going to work harder at making it successful.
Right, right. And I'm glad that you mentioned Dr. Dobson as well. I know when I was up, I've talked with Focus on the Family, because Dr. Dobson was very much, strong families, how to rear children. He never really weighed in on the issue of the no-fault divorce thing. We kind of wish that he would have. I called up Focus on the Family, tried to get them to do that. I think it's an issue that,
Well, I think the whole church has backed away from it.
The whole church, this has been a scandal in the evangelical church. I know Dr. Albert Mohler of the Southern Baptist Convention, I've talked with him several years ago, and he's like, you're actually doing this? Because he's talked about the evangelical scandal of divorce. And if you go back even to places like with Jerry Falwell and the moral majority, they would talk about these things, but nobody talks about the fundamental issue of family. And Ronald Reagan used to say, he would say, you pass on your values around the dinner table.
Right, they're caught, not taught.
Caught, not taught. And what did Lenin want to do when he took over in Bolshevik Russia? He wanted to destroy the family, because if you destroy the family, you can destroy society. Because...
Well, Hitler did that as well, with the camps.
Absolutely.
One of the first things they did was round up the kids to camp. And then that was my call to political activism. One of the reasons back in 2015, I saw a clip of Melissa Harris Perry from MSNBC.
Right.
Now more shit. Did I say that out loud? The new whatever they've rebranded it.
Yeah, I've heard of it now.
But she's like, oh, we need to get over this notion that children belong to their parents, and that by making children our collective, we can allocate resources. Code word, follow the money. They want your kids because there's more money by taking them away from you.
And this has a long historical thought. Go back to Plato. And if you trace socialism throughout the centuries and everything like that, that was the big deal. Parents are oppressive. That's why, and Marx and Engels are very specific about that. And then, of course, if your parents are going to be teaching you strong traditional values that may go against the anti-God atheism of the state, well, what we need to do is break that down.
Well, and I've said this, and maybe to the exception of many women, but I'm like, that dad needs to be in the house. And I'm divorced, and it was a casualty of many things, so it wasn't what I intended to have happen.
Right.
But a dad in the house will be the tough line that keeps your kids. You need that. You need both. You need the mom, the nurturing, and not that dads aren't nurturing. And dads have really become great involved and benefiting from the blessing of really knowing their children and raising them. But there's something about a dad that that they're a protectorate of not just wife. One of my favorite statues, I think it's Benito or something. It's a beautiful marble statue from the flight of Pompeii, and they're fleeing the volcano, and it's a beautiful sculpture. Look it up. But the dad has his arms cloaked over the mother, and the mother is cradling the child in her hands. And I just thought, I saw that at the Chicago Art Museum, and it's bigger than life, and it's just so profound in what that symbolizes in each of the roles in that nuclear family.
And I'm glad that you talk about the idea of roles there too, because we know that there are differences between men and women. And I will tell you right up front that my wife, when we have children, I'm like, she did a much better job than I would have done. I was going out working, whatever. But when it comes down to providing and protecting, I would have that role. And together, we should have that role in the household. We should celebrate the differences and value them. We're complementary people. And like, so in our instance right now, as you mentioned that you were divorced, I went through a no-fault divorce back in 2012, and I said, this is wrong and never should have happened. But there was nothing I could do to stop it. And that's when I saw how bad the courts really were. I remember talking to a judge, and I said, you could have stopped this divorce. He said, no, I can't. And I just can't decide willy-nilly that I'm not going to grant the divorce estate. Actually, he could have, because what's taking place right now, there are so many constitutional issues. Due process. If you go into a case knowing that you're going to lose, you cannot be meaningfully and substantively heard. There's equal protection. If you both are same participants in the same marriage, you should be treated equally. There's issues like the Texas Religious Freedom Restoration Act, because as a Christian, I made my vow to God. Now, and we have actually, it's in our Texas government code as well, it's 110003A, or C, I think is what it is. But what it says is that, in our Texas Constitution also says you should not, in anything, overburden a religious conscience. So there should be some protections for me that I made a covenant to God. I took my vow to God. I didn't take a prenuptial because my prenuptial was a vow to God. And if the state is destroying my vow to God for no reason, if there was something that I'm doing criminally, that's a whole different story.
Right.
But this is something that I made a vow to God. And when you do this, I mean, no minister can actually marry somebody, honestly, in the state of Texas right now. Because if they say, we're going to be together till death do you part,
Right.
it's a lie.
Right.
Because the state will say, you know what? It's funny because the state wants the separation of church and state, but then it interferes in the affairs of the state. And for me as a Christian, I have a duty to fulfill my covenant to God. I have duties toward my wife, toward my children. There are things that if I were to be in a church position, being married is one of those things that would be necessary. Being divorced eliminates me from some of those things. I know a man who I heard about a man, I should say this, was just told about a man by a friend of mine. He said he was a pastor, and the guy's sister filed for no-fault divorce, and because he got divorced, he had to give up his pastoral position.
Yeah.
So now you're impacting that, and he said the guy was so good, never even swore once.
Yeah.
But it was basically, well, I'm just not happy.
So where are we at with your lawsuit as we go to wrap up here?
Sure, absolutely. So what I'm doing right now, this is going to be a constitutional challenge that has actually gone to the court. What I'm asking for is a motion to dismiss, because the court has...
Motion to dismiss your divorce?
Dismiss the whole thing.
Oh, dismiss no-fault divorce.
Dismiss the action against me, because
Okay.
the courts have to settle a controversy.
Okay.
Some type of action. There needs to be a certain legal... There's no facts that are stating that I have breached a duty. So, and if the whole statute is unconstitutional, the courts actually have no power. Nothing is conferred upon the courts to do this. So what we're saying is it's an 11-pronged attack against the constitutionality of 6.001. All of that really needs to happen is one of them needs to pass, and that statute is unconstitutional. Therefore, an unconstitutional statute has no validity. The courts can't hear it. So we're looking to create the constitutional challenge with the courts. Now, I think I know how it may play out there, but I've also I just received a copy from the Office of the Attorney General because we want it to be facially deemed unconstitutional, and therefore I'm seeking declaratory relief from the Office of the Attorney. Well, from the Office of the Attorney. The whole thing is unconstitutional. And again, this has already been. I think almost everybody knows this. Interesting. A couple of weeks ago, the country of Uganda was talking about no-fault divorce, and they have a constitutional court. 4-1, they said no-fault divorce is unconstitutional. We know this. So Uganda is leading.
Yeah.
India also has had the same thing, because there were Muslim women that were saying this whole thing about the triple talaq in Islam, this is unconstitutional, we don't have any due process, and they agreed with them. So we have already precedents. Mississippi has no-fault divorce, as they would call it, by mutual consent. I'm not saying that, that's one state. I'm not sure about South Dakota, but if there's mutual consent, it would give the marital contract, a little bit more exactly. But right now, unilateral divorce for any reason, for no reason, you can make up a reason. You don't have to know the reason. It's going to be granted. Yeah. Your status will be changed. They're going to take your money from you. You may not see your kids. Your parents may not see the kids. It's awful.
There's a whole ball of wax that goes rolling along with that.
Right.
So where can people go to find out more information about what you're doing and follow your work?
Sure. My name is Jeff Morgan. I am on Twitter. I think it's Jeff in Texas 1 or something like that. Americans Against No Fault Divorce is another organization. I will be doing a lot of this. This is because it's Texas. That's the same principles will apply in other states, but it would have to be actually crafted toward that. You could follow me there. There will be other people that will be talking about this. We want this to be a national conversation. And as I've said, I've talked with the Speaker of the House, have not talked with J.D. Vance, but there are legislators throughout the states that are saying this is wrong and this is evil. I never wanted to be the person to attack it like this, but it's like when Jesus.
Sometimes life forces that on you.
Jesus
You're like,
was
really, God? I did not want this fight.
I know. Jesus was in the garden
Never
praying.
mind. Get your gloves on.
I know, exactly. If Lord, Father, if this cup can pass by me, take it from me. But if not,
okay,
your will, not mine, be done. Yeah. And like I said, please pray for us because I do. There were challenges just to the special needs and stuff like that, and some of I kind of alluded to a few things. I don't even know what the actual reason is why this is happening right now, but anyway, it's one of those things that we have to stop this. If we don't stop, and I want to make sure that this evil system is not around for my grandchildren. I would hate my grandchildren to say, Grandpa, did you know that they can do this? I said, yes.
Yeah.
Did you do anything? Well, they're going to say, absolutely. He was out there fighting. I don't know how much it's going to cost or whatever, but I mean, we've been fighting this, working on this.
I've followed you for a few years on your work, so I do know you have been in it for the long haul. So.
We've taken one case to the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, which it was a test case, and the court did not hear it. That was during the Trump-Biden thing. Mm-hmm. But a 1% chance of being heard was better than 0. This one here, our Texas State Supreme Court should hear it, and they should say, he's absolutely right. This statute is unconstitutional. We cannot grant any divorces. And we said prospectively, because what has already been done has been done. But going forward, current and going forward, we would stop this evil practice. And the Texas ought to be looking how to save families and strengthen them, not how to destroy them.
So I won't ask you for a timeline because who knows with the courts, right?
Yeah.
But again, where can people go to follow this important case?
Well, I will. I have a YouTube channel as well.
Oh.
So if you look up Jeff Morgan No Fault Divorce, you will see me there. You can subscribe to me there. I have not started to put out the videos yet because I had all the legal paperwork and timelines, but I'm going to start to explain the issue. And I know that there are many people, men and women, all over the place that are saying, please, you have to do this.
Well, I think that's been a great thing to see dads stepping up, fathers and husbands saying, you know what, this isn't right. What's going on in our country and our families. So thank you for sharing this. It's been a pleasure to see you again.
It's always wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks again. And check out 1afilmfest.com and follow all of our truth work there. We are in the good fight for a reason.
Absolutely, we are.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. 25. There was an article put out in the Federalist magazine, the Federalist online website. It's called "Meet the Man Suing to Stop No Fault Divorce in Texas." I am that person. I am the person about which this article is written. It says a Texas man is suing to prevent his wife from divorcing him, citing violations of the 14th Amendment and more. And this was